Welcome, everyone. I am happy to have you join us for a discussion for our COVID-19 Widowed Resource Group about support networks. And so I want to divide what support means up into a couple of different chunks, because I think the trouble for widowed people is that sometimes we're either inundated with offers of support or we have no offers of support. Sometimes the support we're offered isn't helpful. And other times, what we really need, we're not getting. And so I want to just remind you that there's a variety of types of support. And if we break them down, it's more likely that you're going to be able to find meaningful support in different areas. So here's what I mean by that. First of all, there's emotional support. And your emotional support team might be very different than what you might imagine. So, a lot of times, and I think this might be extra true for people who've experienced a COVID death, is that people don't know what to say to you. And so they may remove themselves or back up from offering support because they don't know what to say. And also they may be afraid of saying the wrong thing, or they may be really just frankly afraid of the strong emotion that they feel when they are with you. So of course, none of that is your fault, and none of it is helpful if the people that you were counting on to support you or would have imagined, right? So let's say 3 years ago, if you imagined yourself in the situation you are right now, and someone said, who's going to show up for you? You might have a list of people that you thought would show up for you. And some of them may have, and some of them may not have. But emotional support, the great news about emotional support is that you can build your own support network. And the beginning of that is participating in a widowed community, just like the one we have here. It could be any kind of community, really, but it's a community that's meaningful to you. And knowing that you have people within that community who will offer you emotional support. The best thing about having emotional support from other widowed people is that you don't have to explain a lot of things to them. They understand why you're sad. They understand why you're overwhelmed. They understand why you have a trouble getting out of bed. They understand why you didn't shower since last Tuesday. So the beauty of having a widowed community is that you have the opportunity to be surrounded by people who've lived the same sort of experience you've lived. I think, again, for the COVID group, it's even more important that you have other people who've lived with COVID, with the experience of living at this time in this world, in this situation, and having it directly impact you through the death of your person. Knowing other people who've lived that is going to make a huge difference. So just a reminder for everyone, and this is included for those of you who may be watching this later, you can ask Mary Moore Hughes, who will be in contact with all of you, to add your name to our Google Sheet, which shares just your names and your email addresses. So you would have the opportunity to reach out to someone else. If you are joining us for the video calls, it's wonderful to be able to see each other's faces. You may hear somebody say something that really resonated with you, and you can reach out to them either privately in the chat here. So remember, you can use your chat bar if you're here on the call today. For those of you who are watching from home, please know that we do have a Widowed Village forum just for the COVID group. Mary sends it out every single week. So that's a place too where you can connect with other people who've had this experience. That kind of emotional support can be really, really valuable. So there's another kind of emotional support that you might also want to think about, and that's people in your life who have showed up. And that might be in the form of family, it might be in the form of friends or neighbors. These people also form your support network. What's really important, I think, is to have more than one person, right? So if you have a couple of people within your widowed community, that's wonderful. If you have a couple of neighbors, great. If you have family members that you can add to that. I know that there are many people who just don't have a lot of people in their lives. And then they're trying to figure out, how am I supposed to build a support network when I have nobody here?
Right.
Telling you that what I want you to remember is that we have the opportunity to be that for each other. And you will find that as you go through the needs that you have and the things that are coming up, there's going to be some things that you can get from your widowed community. There'll be some ways that you may need to build another kind of support network. So we're going to talk about that. And I sincerely wish that I didn't have to say to you that we have to build our own support networks. That is the reality. That is the reality, because the trouble is the people around us sometimes don't know how to help. And if we aren't able to tell them how to help us, then we get no meaningful support, because they're either afraid or they're unsure, or they think that what you really need is someone to, drop off orange juice on your front porch when what you are allergic to orange juice. So, there'll be things where people try, they really do try to help you. But if they don't know how to help you because we haven't communicated our needs to them, then sometimes that helpfulness, is kind of like, well, the thought counts, which is nice. Of course, the thought does count, but it also would be really helpful if they knew how to help you. So the reality is that we have to help ourselves by building a support network. And it will be easier for some than for others. I'm fully aware of that. And it will be challenging for some of us to really figure that out, but it can be done. So let's talk a little bit more about emotional support. Another opportunity I'd like you all to just keep in mind is that you also have the opportunity to seek therapy and find a therapist or a therapeutic community, whatever that is that works for you. For some people, that can be their religious community. For other people, it's an individual therapist. For other people, it's a support group. Those are still running virtually. So I'm going to say to you that if you're struggling with emotional support and you feel like you have just not found what works for you, that a therapeutic community in some way, either through a therapist, a support group, or if you are connected with a religious community that is providing you with emotional support, that's another great way to bring in the team of people who can help you make your way through, because that's what we're doing. We're making our way through each and every day, one little step at a time. But it makes such a difference if you feel like you're not the only one doing it, and if you have meaningful support along the way. So when we're talking about emotional support, my first one is always the widowed community. Make sure you have connections within a widowed community. The second one is the people in your lives who have stepped up in whatever ways. They could be large or small. And then the third way is to seek therapeutic support in whatever way works for you, remembering that there's a lot of virtual opportunity now, and that could be a therapist who comes from a different state. I even know somebody who has a therapist in a different country. So remember, we're not limited anymore by an office that you need to show up to. And since that's true, that's kind of given us a much broader opportunity for emotional support. So those are the three things I want you just to start thinking about, right? Is how can I develop support in those areas? Widowed community, people who are nearby who have showed up, and then a therapeutic support network of some sort. So that's emotional support. But then there's the logistical support. So here's one of the things that I found when the first experience of this when I was widowed was that I looked out my window and my back fence had blown down. And I could see into my neighbor's window. And so it was like, okay, well, now what am I going to do? I have to figure out, the process by which I'm going to fix this fence. And it wasn't that I wasn't capable of it. It was that I couldn't believe I had to do one more thing, right? Because I also had to grocery shop. I also had to make sure the cars were repaired, whatever was going on with the house. That didn't even touch work or kids or having a minute to just be sad. So, I want you to remember that logistical support can lend itself to some emotional support by freeing you up to be able to take some time for yourself. So what I mean by logistical support is being able to answer the question. So if, let's say, using the fence example, let's say I had already identified somebody who was going to be helpful to me with small household chores, I would know who to call. I didn't know who to call because I hadn't identified anybody who could help me with that. So the thing about logistical support is that it might be someone you hire. So I will tell you, we were at one of our widowed groups meeting for our social group, and the most wanted number around the table was a reliable handyman. So one of the ladies had a reliable handyman. She felt comfortable. He made her feel comfortable, safe. She wasn't worried about anything. he was useful in a variety of different modalities in terms of he had crafts of all kinds. And so people were like, let me have his number. Let me have his number. So what I want to remind you of is that sometimes something as simple as being able to say, okay, who's a handyman that I could use that would help me with this, right? Okay, the same thing I'm going to say if you're parenting and you need carpool. Who would you call if you were in trouble and you needed help with carpool? Like having identified some people. So these are not necessarily emotional support people, right? These are people who might be willing to help you with something. For our men in our group too, many of them have said, there are some tasks that my wife or partner did that I just have never had to do. How do I learn those? So finding mentors around things that you don't know. And again, like, I'm sorry that it has to be us that figures this out, but nobody else knows what you need, right? If we were going to look at a list of things that were logistical for you personally, right? So I'll talk about myself. When my husband died, I did not have anyone who was nearby. My family lived an hour and a half away. So any household issues were not going to be handled by one of my brothers. I had 3 kids at home who all went to 3 different schools. So I had to figure out how I was getting everybody to wherever it was that they went. I worked a job that also included nights. So I had to figure out what to do about the kids at night. So these were some of the logistical challenges I faced. Obviously, you all will have your own set of logistical challenges. What's helpful is just to write some down. Okay, what are the top 3 hardest things that you have to deal with that you just are like, if I have to do that one more time, I'm going to scream. Write those down and then ask the question, what logistical support would make this better? What logistical support would make this better? And that might be someone you hire. It might be, someone who you connect with that you say to your support network, I need someone to do this thing. And they may say, oh, I could do that. Now, that's not going to necessarily be the person who's going to stop in and check on you and say, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And able to hear you. But it might be someone who is willing to come and help facilitate the fence going back up. So I just want to, if you can separate logistical support from emotional support, what you end up getting is a little bit more time for yourself emotionally. So logistical support does become emotional support, not because they're the same person offering the support, but because it frees you up a little bit. That sense of like, everything is up to me. I have to make sure everything happens. If we can lighten that load on you just a little bit, it's like getting a brush of fresh air, like just for a minute. It's like, oh, okay, that one thing I don't have to do. So what I'd love for you to do when you're thinking, so we'll talk about this a little bit in our discussion, and then for those who are watching at home, I'd love for you just to write down 3 things that are really making you crazy, that are difficult, things that you wish that you had support for, and then ask the question, okay, how can I maybe get some support around this? Remembering that, websites that give you reviews on services is a great place, right? Even YouTube is a great resource for figuring some of this stuff out. And we don't think about it that way, right? Really, YouTube's going to be part of my logistical support team. Why not? If YouTube can cut down the time it takes you to do whatever it is you need to do and don't know how to do, that's one way of providing yourself with just a little bit of respite, because everything feels overwhelming when you don't know what to do about it. When you don't know what to do, then it's just like, okay, I'm just going to sit in this because I don't even know where to turn next. So what you're going to find, you've already seen it probably. Yes. See, oh, Mary says she fixed a part of her car from a YouTube tutorial. I fixed a bathroom sink with a YouTube tutorial, and I was very proud of myself, and now tell people I could be a plumber if ever I wanted to. But pretty much you can find anything on YouTube. And so it's just a reminder that as alone as we feel, we aren't often as alone as we think we are, because there are other people who are struggling to fix that sink and put that on YouTube. There are other people who have put things out there that they struggled with, or expertise that they have that they're sharing with you for free. So being able to access those is super, super important. And just a good reminder. It's a good reminder for you to know that there is a set of resources available to you. So what Mary sent out with the initial notice for this meeting was our Building Your Support network document. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. It's very long and it's got a lot of words on it. So I acknowledge that. What I want you to know, the purpose of it is twofold though. The first is to remind the people around you that a lot of them said, oh, if you need anything, let me know. How many of you, I mean, right? Everybody heard that. If there's anything I can do for you. But here's the trouble with the phrase, anything I can do for you. Does that mean that if I need a ride at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can call you? Does that count? What if it's in the middle of dinner and I realize that I have a flat tire and I'm in need of someone to come and get me? Is that you? Are you going to answer the phone in the middle of dinner? The trouble with anything is that probably there are some people who would say, oh yes, of course that's me. And there are other people who would say, oh, well, maybe not during the middle of dinner. So we need to know who's who. You need to know who's who. Who can you count on for what? So the front side of the document kind of describes that. Why does that matter? The back side of the document is a whole list that's intended to sit on your refrigerator, right? Now, some of those things you're going to be like, oh, I don't need help. I don't have any kids. I don't need help with carpooling. Okay, well, cross that one out. And then at the bottom, there's open spots. So if there are other things that you do need help with, you can put that in. But here's the thing. I remember putting my keys in the freezer. That's where my brain was. Like I couldn't find the keys. They were in the freezer. Why? Because I couldn't remember anything. How are you supposed to remember who told you that they're willing to help you drive carpool? The way you do that is you put it on your refrigerator. And when you look at the problem, you go, oh, that person said that I could call them about that. That support document is intended to help you figure that out. Now, the answer might be, Uber, or it might be, look this one up on YouTube. You're not going to have a person to fill in for every spot necessarily. You might not need every spot, but the idea is, okay, if this thing happens, who do I call? If this thing happens, who do I call? And this marshals that and puts it in one spot so that your overwhelmed, widowed brain doesn't need to try to remember who said what. That's the point of that document. It's also going to highlight for you the areas where you don't have any support. And the reason that's important is because when you don't have any support, you often are led right to the overwhelmed feeling and the lonely feeling and the sad feeling. And then you're sitting in all of those feelings, still unsure how you're supposed to get the support you need. So the no support, when you look at that document, I want you to just start filling in the boxes. Some of them may be people you hire. Some of them may be people who you haven't yet talked to about whatever your need is. My task for you is going to be this. I want you to call those people and say, hey, you said you were willing to help me. Would you be willing to help me with this? And if they say no, guess what? They're not your person. And if they say yes, now you and that person have confirmation and you can put their name in that spot with their phone number right there so that when you can't remember anything, you know that person said yes to this. Some of you may find that there's one person who fills in 5 different spots. That's fine, as long as you feel confident that that person is your person for each of those 5 tasks. I will say it is helpful to have multiple people so as not to feel like you're overwhelming someone with requests. I got really tired of asking for help. I can imagine that some of you may have had that feeling already, but I was like, seriously, like, I can't do all of this by myself. And so, though we may get tired of asking for help, without the ask, we aren't going to get any. And so, when you come to that document, I want you to take a look at it and start thinking about how do you fill those in, right? 2 more points. One is, if you don't have support, I want you to take it on yourself to think how you can start shifting that. And that's going to be connecting here within our widowed community. That's going to be looking at the areas where just a little bit of help would make a difference and focusing on those first. Okay. I want you to start telling yourself, I can find support, and here are the ways in which I can do it. Then I want to talk about the 3 a.m. person. So you're going to see on that list, there's 2 3 a.m. people. One says 3 a.m. person nearby or something, and the other one's your 3 a.m. emotional support person. These people are often different people. They aren't necessarily the same, although they could be. But here's the 3 a.m. why this came to be. I was talking to a group of widowed people. There was a woman who had been widowed 15 years. She told me that she's driven herself to the ER 3 times because she didn't have anyone who she felt she could call to take her to the hospital when she didn't feel like she needed an ambulance, but she was in need of going to urgent care. And that got me thinking. And I said, is there anybody in your life who might be willing to do that for you? And she said, yes, but I can't call them at 3 a.m. And so I thought, okay, so here's the agreement is I call Vicki and I say, Vicki, is it okay if I'm stuck in the middle of the night? Can I call you to come and help me at 3 a.m.? I'd be willing to be that person for you, Vicki, if you will be that person for me. Obviously, this person needs to be someone nearby. And it doesn't, for the record, need to be someone you're extra close to. For example, my father-in-law died a year and a half ago. My mother-in-law lives on a little street. My sister-in-law is an hour away. If she has a 3 a.m. problem, none of her family members are going to be able to come and help. So she went across the street to a neighbor who she knows but isn't great friends with. And she said, I noticed that you're here alone. I'm here alone. If I have a problem at 3 a.m, can I call you? I'd be willing for you to call me. Now they have an agreement. Now she has a 3 a.m. person and the other person has a 3 a.m. person. Again, this is not like, hi, can I call you crying at 3 o'clock in the morning? This is, my door is stuck and I'm on the other side of it. This is, something is gone bump in the night and I don't know if I need what kind of support I need. This is a pipe burst and there's water pouring into my house. These are the kind of things that 3 a.m. person who's logistical, nearby enough that they could be helpful, that who do I call? Because, right, the person you would have called is not able to take calls right now. That's what I always would say. My person who I would have called is dead. I can't call him anymore. Who am I going to call then? And the answer can't be nobody, because the 3 a.m. trouble could happen anyways. And what will you find if you haven't made a plan is either you're managing it alone at the best that you can, or whomever happens to show up from nearby. So thinking through who is that 3 a.m. person, right? That's your logistical 3 a.m. person. But there's also another kind of 3 a.m. person. That's the I can't stop crying 3 a.m. person. That's the I can't sleep, it's the middle of the night, my head won't stop talking to me person. That person can be anywhere in the world. I recommend highly that you find a widowed person who can be that person, because you guys can share the job and be that person for each other. But the difference there is that you can send the text message at 3, right? You can. Now, they may not always answer, but at least you're not afraid to ask for the help. And that's the key to having made this agreement in advance. It turned out that most people, it wasn't that they didn't have anyone in their lives that they thought might be willing to be a 3 a.m. person. It's that they never asked. And because they hadn't asked, when the need arose, they didn't feel comfortable making the call because they'd never talked about it. But when you've talked about it and you've made the agreement, then you can pick up the phone and get the help and support that you need. How those morning hours are. They can be so difficult. And knowing that you have someone you can call can make a really huge difference. So I want to just point out, those are both on the sheet that we talked about. And oftentimes people are like, what in the heck is a 3 a.m. person? So that's a way of making sure that you can connect with somebody when you're most in need. So just as a recap, we've got emotional support, and the 3 parts of that are a widowed community, people who are nearby enough to you to offer some emotional support or who have already showed up for you, and then some kind of therapeutic support and or spiritual support, depending on what feels valuable to you. Then there's logistical support. Remember, this can be hired. This is not people who necessarily are just doing it out of the goodness of their heart, though if you have one of those, please use those too. But these are people who can provide you with very specific support for situations where you don't necessarily know how to do it, or you don't want to have to learn how to do one more thing. It's okay to ask someone else to do it for you. It doesn't mean that you won't ever do it. It doesn't mean that you are incapable. It just means that you've had enough. And that when you've had enough, asking for help relieves you logistically, which then relieves you emotionally, which gives you a minute to take a breath. So logistical support can be found through, any kind of services that are available that would be meaningful for you, as well as we said through YouTube, learning things more quickly and being able to provide yourself with some support around issues that are things you just need to learn about. Then lastly, just the idea that many widowed people find themselves in a situation where they have no support. And while I wish that I could tell you that the support could grow on trees, or that you could go push a button and all of the support you need was going to just surround you, that would be my preference for every widowed person. Since we live in a real world where that's not a thing, I just want to say that we have the ability to create a support network that's meaningful to us if we just take it one step at a time. And that's what the Building Your Support Network document is supposed to help you do. So you'll get that by email. Mary's put it in the chat for the people who are here. And you are going to have the opportunity to fill that out, ask questions, cross out what doesn't work for you. We realize that this is something that, is customizable. So cross out all the things that don't work, put in your own, you make that document your own. But the purpose is to say to yourself, okay, who do I need and how do I get them? So on that note, we are going to close up our recording. For all of you watching virtually, just know that you're here with us in spirit, and that Soaring Spirits is a place that you can return to again and again for resources and for support and for community. As a last reminder for everyone, including the people who are watching my video, if you'd like to be added to the Google Sheet that has our COVID Widowed Resource Program participants who are willing to be contacted by email, that document only has the people who have said, I would like to be contacted and I'm willing to share my contact information. So it doesn't include everyone, but it does include everyone who has said that they would like to be connected. So if you're interested in that, please respond to Mary's email this week, and she'll be happy not only to add you to the list, but to share the list with you as well. All right, thank you very much.